All right, we should be good now. All right, Courtney's coming in. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Welcome everybody who has taken the time to come in. I really appreciate it. I understand how difficult it is um, to do this. We're all really busy people. We've got lives, we've got families, we've got jobs. Um, you know, it's a lot, and I appreciate what you are trying to do because I have been in your shoes. So, a little bit about myself. My name's Greg Height, and I'm a member of the Georgia Lacrosse Officials Association. This is my 26th year of officiating lacrosse. Um, I grew up in New York and started to play when I was in eighth grade. It was the first time I'd ever heard about the sport. I'd been in public school just outside of New York City, and I moved to a private school and they had lacrosse, and I thought it was the greatest thing that I had ever seen in my entire life. Um, and I played in college. I played at Bates College up in Maine. I played abroad for a year for the University of Oxford, which was hilarious. Um, Came back after I finished college. I played for the UVA men's club team in the NCLL. Um, and for years, a guy was badgering me to come out and officiate lacrosse. Okay. And he badgered me and he badgered me and he badgered me and he badgered me. And finally, when I was about 30 years old, uh, I said, all right, man, I'm ready to hang it up. I need to finish my dissertation. I got to get all this other stuff going on. I'm going to officiate. Um, and it has been the ride of a lifetime, right? I have checked things off my bucket list that I never thought I was going to be able to do. Um, did a year in Virginia where I got trained in Charlottesville, moved down to Tampa Bay, where I helped start the Tampa Bay Lacrosse Officials Association. That's when I became a clinician, started working with USA Lacrosse, came up to Georgia, and they put me in charge of being the lead trainer because I was a teacher. And this is going to be my 30 something year of teaching. So I've got a lot of experience with lacrosse and I've got a lot of experience with teaching. So this is kind of where all of this came together. My work with USA Lacrosse, I'm a USA Lacrosse clinician. I help out with the men's officials education development program. I've given talks and webinars. I've been a Laredo clinician, and I'm also involved in the college ranks on the education department. So, I've got uh, my fingers in a lot of things. So, that being said, what I'm trying to do is to bring you USA Lacrosse mechanics, NFHS rules, and as much experience as both a lacrosse official and a teacher that I can possibly have. So the way this will work is this is going to be our first Zoom call, and we're going to really jump into it in a second. But I want to show you this document first because it is where everything you need is going to be. So this is the what I call the rookie training plan. And it is make this a little smaller here. Hold on. There we go. So this is the rookie training clinic plan, right? Um, and that's my contact information right there. Please put that in your phone. If you've got a question now or at any point in the future about the game of lacrosse, feel free to text me or call me. There are links here for important documents, tests, forms, whatnot. Um, right here is the GLOA game guide. I'm actually in the process of updating this, so that link will change at some point, but I'll let you know. This is a guide that's put out by USA Lacrosse, which is sort of a brief guide to two-man mechanics. It's a really nice reference, and you can sort of read through that, and hopefully I am fleshing this out in much greater detail. But that's a really helpful document to have. Um, I've got a youth rules comparison chart. We've got a link to an arbiter guide. That's the assigning system that we use when we assign games with the GLOA. This is our link to our uniform and equipment page. So any uniform equipment information that you have that you need, it's there. Um, we've got our gear store, and we've just set up a deal with All Sports Officials, a group out of Pennsylvania that does a lot of Lacrosse Officials Association around the country and also does all the college uniform stuff. So we just set something up with them, and I'll talk about that as we go through these presentations. This is the main breakdown of everything that we're going to do. So, hopefully, you got a chance to watch the game and the rules, which is a little bit of the history of the game and the development of the game over time. We've got what we're going to do today is key definitions, the field, goal, ball, and equipment, cross and equipment, and game personnel, officials, uniform, and equipment. So, a lot to cover. You can see the Zoom links are on the left-hand side. They're always the same. So if you got a buddy who is interested in doing this, they can come in, they can watch the last call, they can watch whatever they've missed, and we'll take care of them. Okay. Next time I'll see you on Sunday, hopefully. Actually, am I looking at this one? Yeah. The next time I see you, I'm not going to see you on a Zoom link. I'm going to see you at Pope High School. So hopefully those of you who can make it are going to be there. Hopefully the weather will not be crazy. We are monitoring the weather and are in touch with Coach Pfaff over at Pope High School. As soon as anything happens, I will let you know. But what you're going to do over at Pope is you're going to be working with two of our other clinicians, and we're going to be talking about positioning, counts, out of bounds and offsides, substitutions, and restarts. So there's a lot of stuff that you'll do there, and I think it'll be really great. Now, note that there is homework. So after this, I'd really love you to get into the clock, mercy rule, and overtime. These are things that you can watch, but you can also listen to them, play it through your phone in your car, and you can listen to stuff, and hopefully some of that will allow you to process things. Um, After next week, I'd love to have you watch our GLO game commentary. So I worked a game with another really good official, and we got some good video. And what I did was I narrated my game. I didn't talk about penalties. I didn't talk about judgment calls or managing coaches, but I just talked about what you need to be doing during a lacrosse game. How many players do we have on the field? Are we offsides? What is the count now? We have a 10 count. We're at a 20 count. All of the things that happen moment by moment in a lacrosse game as an official. When we get to session three, we'll do fouls and technical and personal fouls. Session four is assessing fouls and communicating fouls. And then session five is going to be face-offs, crease play, and setting up your arbiter accounts. And you'll get introduced to all the assigners at that point. So, again, it's a lot of information. I get it. I really do get it. Hold on, somebody's got a question in the chat. Um, yeah, so you have already been sent this document. If you got the welcome email from me, there is a link to the plan. So you should already have it. And I will send it out next um, uh, time I send you an email. So you will always have access to this document. And as I update it, it automatically updates. So you just have to kind of hit refresh and see what's going on. This is the other place that I think it's really important that you know to check out and look around. This is the Georgia Lacrosse Officials Association website, galaxref.com. And you can find who all the leaders are.
Basketball on the baseline.
And you can see really anything that you need. So we've got our observers program, game fees and dues, tournament opportunities, officials classification, We've got our incident report form, officials helpline. We've got the resource page is a really nice place for you to go. We've got insurance guides, the arbiter guide, pre-games that you can use, important charts. We've got our certification cards, USA Lacrosse Mechanics. And down here, I've got a lot of, some of them are old, but a lot of these are really good talks that you can listen to about sort of the art of officiating. Um, Another place I'd like you to check out is our YouTube channel. Um, Absolutely, if I sort of go over here, our two-man mechanics training program. So every presentation that we're going to do tonight and this weekend is already up as an individual recording. So it's not this kind of thing. It's just me doing voiceover and allowing you to sort of dive into these without people asking questions and dogs barking and all sorts of crazy stuff happening. Okay. So you can always go back and review the individual thing that you want to work on. Okay. So if you're like, oh shit, I don't know what the hell he's talking about when he's talking about counts, you can say, oh, all right, I'm going to go back and I'm going to check this out. Okay. Um, And then to give you a preview, we'll talk about this on Saturday as well, because we're going to announce this to the rest of the association. But if you go to allsportsofficials.com, as you begin to procure your uniform, you will see you can get a long sleeve, a short sleeve, you can get uh, you can get a dry wick shirt. I mean, literally, this is the first time I'm looking at this as well. And they're going to be putting more stuff on there. But you can also buy, um, let's get in here. You can get timers, you can get flags, you can get all the stuff that you need. And we're going to go through all the stuff that you're going to need tonight. Okay. All right. So I've done website, I've done training plan, and we've got all that. Okay, so um, let's get into this. Let me stop sharing. Anybody have any questions right now?
Quick question.
Sure.
It seems like the lacrosse, at least the tops, are similar to football. Um,
If you have a football GHSA long sleeve or short sleeve, you have the exact shirt.
okay, sounds good.
The
Thank you.
only thing that's going to be different is we don't have the white stripe down the pants.
Gotcha.
And
Hmm.
you know, the number of I did football for 13 years, so the number of times that I showed up to a lacrosse game with the white stripe and the other one with the black stripe, like it sort of is what it is, right? But really, that's the only major difference. That's
Okay.
really the only major difference. The thing is, you don't want the basketball shirt. That's the big.
Nah.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna do this and this. All right, we are looking at this screen. Okay. Mm, okay. So if you have officiated a sport before, it's really important that you know how to read a rule book. Oh wait, I don't want to do this with timing. I want to. No. There we go. Uh, if you know how to read a rule book, you understand how important it is to understand key definitions in the rule book. If you don't understand what these definitions mean, you are going to be at a loss, right? Simultaneous doesn't mean at the same time in lacrosse. So when you see simultaneous fouls, they don't happen at the same time. Okay. What a slash is defined at, what contact to the head is defined as. The language in those rule books are really specific. Okay. And there are a couple of key terms that are defined in the rule book that if you understand those, everything else falls into place. And if you don't, things can get a little shaky. So some of the terms that I'm going to use here are possession, shot, valid shot, goal, out of bounds. Those are all really important definitions. They are essential to doing this job. And you've also got airborne player, alternate possession, and a new one for 2025, scrimmage area. You got to understand what these mean in order to be successful in interpreting this rule book. These are the most important ones: possession, shot, out of bounds, and goal. So possession is defined as carrying, cradling, passing, or shooting. So if you have played lacrosse before, you understand what all these terms mean. Carrying the ball is what the guy on the right's doing. He's literally just got the ball in the basket of his cross, in the mesh of his cross, and he is just running down the field. He can actually be moving it back and forth, and that centrifugal force allows the ball to stay in even when he's getting checked. Passing and shooting are fairly self-explanatory. If you are doing one of these four things, you are considered to be in possession of the ball. And so throughout this presentation, I will say, hey, this we're talking about possession here. That's carrying, cradling, passing, shooting. Okay. And that's literally Rule 4.5, Article 2.3. So the way these presentations work is you will see the topic up on top, and I will actually have the rule reference so you can just get into the rules. We don't use page 52 or page 39. We talk about sort of chapter and verse if you are biblically inclined. A ball is loose if not in player possession. So if you are not carrying, cradling, passing, or shooting, we consider the ball to be loose. And this is the most important definition in the book. Okay. If you're going to call a timeout, you need to have possession. If we're going to throw a flag on a technical foul, you need to have possession. Okay. You need to have possession at the end of a quarter in a man up, man down situation so that you keep the ball going into the next quarter and avoid a face off. Possession is really important. So what you will see here is here we are, we're carrying the ball, cradling, and now we're taking a shot. And a shot is defined as a ball propelled towards the goal by an offensive player with the intent of scoring. It can be thrown from across, kicked, or otherwise physically directed. I always laugh because I've been doing this since about 2010, presentations like these. My first goal in eighth grade, I kicked it into the net. And I looked at the goalie, and the goalie looked at me, and we both turned and looked at the official, and he looked at us and didn't know what to do. And he looked upfield to his partner, who signaled goal. And every time I train newbies or go out there and think to myself, what was it like to do my first game? I know what that guy felt like, right? He wasn't sure. And so a lot of what I'm trying to do is to make sure you understand what these things are. So yes, you can kick it. It can bounce off somebody's head. You can shoot it in or pass it in. Intent is determined by the official. You can't yell, I'm taking a shot, and then shoot the ball. Okay. You've got to, in my opinion, as the official, look like you are attempting to score. That being said, if somebody checks you and the ball goes straight up in the air or shoots out to the sideline, if I think you were trying to score, I am going to treat that as a shot. Um, there is a sub definition of shot, which is called a valid shot. When a ball is parallel to or above goal line extended. We're going to get into that in a second. And the reason shot is really important is not necessarily for if it scores, but in lacrosse, when the ball goes out of bounds, we award it on a shot to the person who is closest in bounds when and where that ball goes out of bounds. So it's different than if I make a pass and it goes out of bounds. In that case, the team that last touched it loses the ball. It's just like basketball, okay? But in lacrosse, a shot is different. It's who's closest to when it goes out of bounds. You have to be inbounds, and you got to be closest to when and where it goes out of bounds. So this is what valid shot is talking about. Right here, we're on the sideline looking across the field. We're looking at the crease. So this is where the goalie gets his special privileges. And if we can imagine the goal line is in between those two orange pipes, this line, if we were to extend it out on a lacrosse field, is called goal line extended. And goal line extended really is a space on the field that we use as officials for positioning ourselves. Okay. But in this case, they put this in the rule a couple of years ago because you can have a stall warning. Basically, you think a team's not trying to score or risk the ball, they're trying to milk the clock. And one of the ways you wipe out a stall warning is by hitting the goalie or the cage. And they wanted to make sure you weren't doing it from behind the goal. So, in order for a shot to be considered a shot, the ball needs to be released from the cross above this line. So, this side of the line is where it needs to be. And it's kind of a hard thing to officiate, but it's key in terms of awarding the ball. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. So this is Carolina Hopkins. Carolina players got it. He's going to carry and cradle, and he's going to shoot that. And if I slow this down, he's really close to being above or right on goal line extended. And so, this is one of those things that you really need to pay attention to. So if we get in here, this is where he is. Now imagine he were to miss this and the ball were to go out of bounds on the far sideline. It is then up to the official in a high school game to determine whether or not this was a valid shot. Now, when does a shot end? A shot can't remain a shot forever, right? We got to just play the game here. So, shot or deflected shot, because it doesn't matter if it bounces off of people. Once we've determined that it's a shot, it's going to be a shot until the ball comes to rest. That means the ball is just sitting there on the turf and it's not moving. At that point, we are just playing lacrosse. So whatever happens, we are not assuming it's a shot anymore. If a team gains possession, a shot ends. So if you take a shot and a defender intercepts it and they are carrying, cradling, passing, or shooting, we're going to say, hey, shot's over. Ball goes out of bounds, that ends a shot. A player causes it to go out of bounds. And you can also say a goal, right? That technically would end a shot. Now, player causes it to go out of bounds can be kind of crazy. Shot is taken, it bounces off somebody's helmet, and it's rolling towards the sideline. Player comes and is trying to pick it up, but can't quite get it off the ground into possession. As an official, you have to ask yourself, would this ball have gone out on its own, or did that player give added impetus to it and cause it to go out of bounds? And so the big debate here is, was there added impetus? It really rarely happens. 90% of the time, I would say, when a shot is going out of bounds and guys are trying to get it, it sort of was going to go out anyway. Okay, that's why it's so difficult for them to pick up. But if the ball's going this way and somebody whacks it and it goes that way, now we have added impetus and we can say, hey, you whacking it caused it to go out of bounds that way. We're going to say that was off you, and so we're going to give it to the other team. Probably the second most important definition in lacrosse, because most goals win, right? So we need to know as officials, what is the what is going to allow a goal and what is going to disallow a goal. And we have an entire presentation on this that we'll be going through. So the definition of a goal is a loose ball, so one not in player possession, carrying, cradling, passing, shooting, that completely passes through the front of the plane, formed at the rear edge of the goal line, goalpost, and crossbar. So you see the ball there. Now imagine that you're seeing this 2-inch wide line called the goal line that goes in between those two orange posts. That 2-inch line is up against a 1.5-inch orange post, which if we round up is 2 inches. So it's 2 inches all the way around. It is not the front of the line and the goalpost and the crossbar. It is the back of the line and the goalpost and the crossbar. So if you're a football guy, you reach that ball out to the goal line and you touch that plane, you got a touchdown. In lacrosse, the entire ball needs to be past the plane formed at the back of the goal line, goalposts, and crossbar. So what you will hear and the myths of lacrosse are, well, it hit 3 pipes, so it has to be a goal. Not true. Um, well, it hit the line, but that's fine. If it touched the line and it's laying there, it is not a goal. Okay. It doesn't matter how it got in there. It can bounce off somebody's head. You can kick it. It can roll along the ground. Okay. You can throw it in your own net. Impetus is irrelevant. And like basketball, a goal can be released before the horn to end a period. So as long as it's out of your cross before the horn goes off, we're going to see what happens. Okay. So again, here are examples of players carrying, cradling, shooting, and scoring goals. And we can see that that is completely past the rear edge of the plane, formed at the back edge of the goal line and the crossbar and the goalposts. Here is a great example of goals. So this is a fast break, right? So this is a lot versus a little opportunity, unsettled situation. And here, number 11 is absolutely going to rip a shot right in here. That ball goes through the netting of the goalie's cross. Right there. And so once that's not in the goalie's net, it is no longer in possession, which means it's a loose ball. Had the goalie caught that and actually been blown back into the cage and gone past that plane, it would not have been a goal because it's in possession. It needs to be a loose ball that completely crosses that plane. Um, if you release a shot before the horn, and again, all this goal stuff is rule 4849. So that's kind of where you want to be in the rule book. A goal will be allowed if a shot is released prior to the end of a period. It can hit the ground, it can deflect off team B. So we're talking about the defense, so the goalkeeper or a defensive player. But the shot cannot hit an offensive player. So we always want to be mindful when we are towards the end of a period. Hey, if somebody takes a shot, we are not going to blow our whistle when the horn goes off because we may have to see what happens. And as soon as it hits an offensive player, you kill it. As soon as it goes beyond the goal, it's clear it's not going to score. It comes to rest because then the shot has ended. Then we're going to kill it. Okay. All right, so let's talk about out of bounds. So this is a pretty classic example of two guys fighting for the ball, and we've got the ball is hovering over the line here. It's not touching. It's sort of an inch above the line. This is a loose ball. It is clearly not in player possession, and if that ball is touching on or beyond a boundary line. So if as soon as it hits that white line, it's out of bounds. If it goes beyond the plane formed by that boundary line, Okay. You are going to give it to the team that did not last touch it. So let's say white was the last to touch it here. If it goes out of bounds, we are awarding it to gold. Okay. Now, if a player in possession, carrying, cradling, passing, shooting, steps on a line, in this case, you've got to make contact, right? Um, uh, you're going to be out of bounds. Okay. Now, if you dive into the air with possession, but you don't touch anything that's out of bounds, you are still considered to be in bounds. You've got to touch something if you are in possession of the ball. Um, a player who is out of bounds is not allowed to reach back in and touch the ball until they have fully reestablished themselves in the field of play. So if you are in bounds and you dive in the air, you are not considered out of bounds until you land. And if you are out of bounds and dive in the air until nothing is touching out of bounds and something is touching inbounds, you are not considered inbounds. We're going to get into that in a second when we get to airborne player. So here's a pretty great example of that ball is just lying right by the line here. So you see nobody's out of bounds, nobody's touching anything, and then we're scooping it up. But that's one of those plays where it's right on the line. There's a lot of bodies, there's a lot of pushing and shoving, and you've got to be in great position in order to see what's happening. So in this clip, I would love for you to watch the player as they run out of bounds. So ball is going to be out of bounds when it touches something out of bounds, ground, object, player. This guy touches out of bounds and then makes contact with the ball. So here he is. So Gold's running. He touches out of bounds and then he makes contact. So he can't touch out of bounds, jump up in the air, and then make contact. That's the key thing here. Um, in this case, Green is going to restart with possession and he just gets pushed out of bounds. That's legal contact right there. That's from the side. There's nothing illegal about that. But here we have a player in possession, carrying, cradling, passing, shooting, who steps out of bounds. Okay. Now, as I had mentioned, a shot out of bounds, we are going to award to the inbounds player closest to where the ball goes out of bounds, exactly when it goes out of bounds. And the thing I really want to emphasize here is we do not count the crosses. We only count the body of a player. So this is where we're looking. You are not looking at the cross. You're not looking at the length of the stick. You are looking at the body of the player. And so the Maryland goalie here is very, very clearly in front, but it ain't by much. Right? And so again, you got to understand the rule. You will see kids playing lacrosse who are like, "Well, I'm right by the end line. So clearly I'm the player that is closest." And it's like, "No, it's geometry, right? This is Euclidean geometry. That's all we got to do here." Many times you will see players running to the end line and a player will step out of bounds just before the ball goes out of bounds. As soon as he steps out of bounds, he is not considered a player until he has completely reestablished himself back in bounds. Remember, cross is not part of the player. All right. On a shot, we're going to see some mechanics and we're going to see who we award this to. So here, blue is gonna drive, take a shot. He misses. It is very clear that 11 blue is the only person who is close to this play. Right? Everybody and their grandmother knows that 11 blue is getting it, and the official correctly restarts right here. We call this an uncontested shot. Okay. Easy play to officiate. My advice to you is always take a couple of steps towards that end line because it shows that you're hustling. It shows that you're working. You're getting the best angle to see the play. Here is a contested shot. So here white is going to drive. He takes a shot, and now we've got bodies running down trying to get there. And look how much closer the official gets in order to officiate that play. Right? This is an exciting play in lacrosse. You get to be the one who turns around and says goalie ball or, make the big signal and really sell that call. But you got to be in the right position and you got to know the rule. Okay. So this is kind of what we were talking about. We're talking about airborne players here. Um, uh, this player is in bounds until he touches out of bounds. So he can pass it back to his buddy. He could catch it. He could take a shot. He can do any of those things. It's what you were last in contact with. And the phrase that my buddy Gordon Corsetti and I love to use is you are where you were. So until you're in a new place, we consider you to be in the last place that you were. If you were inbounds, you're inbounds. If you're out of bounds, you're out of bounds. If you were in the crease and you jump up in the air, you are still considered to be in the crease until you land. Okay. Um, so let me do this guy. All right. This is the new definition, and then I will get to your questions. Scrimmage area. This was put in this year, and what the Rules Committee wanted to do was to more clearly define what we meant as the area where play was happening. And this is important because, as you've noted, if you've been following high school and college lacrosse, the rules committee in both the big boys and the little boys have been very frustrated with helmets coming off. And it's literally because players are not strapping their helmets in, right? They're just popping them on, popping them off, and they think that's fine. But that's not what the manufacturer wants. That doesn't allow the protection that you need to have when you play this game. And so the idea was let's define what the scrimmage area is because if a player loses required equipment in the scrimmage area, we need to kill the play. So this is the area roughly within 5 yards in all direction of the ball or part of active play. And the player in possession, carrying, cradling, passing, shooting, is always considered to be in the scrimmage area. I will guarantee you, because this is a new rule, that this question will be on the test. And then finally, let's get to alternate possession. This is our last one. Easiest thing to do. It is basically the directional arrow in basketball. At the beginning of the game, you flip a coin. The captain of the visiting team gets to make the call. If he wins, he is given the choice of first alternate possession. If we don't know who we should give the ball to, or by rule, we have to award it, we're going to go with whatever the AP is. And you mark it on your scorecard I circle the possession arrow. If you have a situation where you have to award alternate possession, you would then say, uh, we didn't know who we're going to give the ball to. We're going to go AP. It's red ball. Please note that the blue team now has the next alternate possession. Okay. Um, Examples of this are the ball gets stuck in the mud outside of the crease. You can't determine who last touched it when it went out of bounds, all that stuff. Um, all right, let's get to questions. Um, Orlando, it is the exact spot where the ball goes out of bounds, right? And this is where a lot of high school kids get, this is where kids get all sort of like, well, I'm standing right next to the line. I don't know why the fact that the ball went, it's exactly where the ball went out of bounds. Um, and then, Tom, you asked if the goalie gains possession and backloads his cross for a clear, but the ball crosses the goal line, it is not a goal. You could literally take your stick and shove it into the goal like you are making a pizza. And if you are in possession of the ball, it can't be a goal. Okay. Carrying, cradling, passing, shooting. All right. All right. I think that's it for that. Um, right. And again, You'll hear me say what these definitions are kind of as we go through the rule book. You may want to jot them down into your, on a piece of paper. We will have, I hope that we will meet on Sunday. I assume that we will have uh, paper rule books for you, but as soon as you get set up in Dragonfly, you get access to the NFHS All Access. And so you can get access to an online rule book, which is really nice because you can make your own notes, you can type stuff up, you can highlight things, but you can also use my favorite feature, Command F, and you can find things in the rule book. Okay. Because more times often than not, there's about four different rules that also bear on a particular situation. It's not like turn to page 32 and all your questions will be answered. It doesn't really work that way. Um, all righty. What do we got here? All right. So I'm just going to hammer through. If you need to run to the restroom or do anything, feel free. Um, uh, Scott, as far as we deal with possession when the ball is killed, it depends on but it depends on what happens. 90% of the time, the team that was in possession when they lose required equipment keeps the ball. So A keeps the ball unless it is a helmet. And I may need to check that because the college rule is different than the high school rule, and I usually screw this up. But we will get to that in a separate presentation. We will get to that in a separate presentation. All right, so let me share my screen. All right, so we are looking at, oh, I gotta do this again. Sorry, I used, for the first time in my life, I used the new feature on, um, uh, I want to unclick use type things. There we go. I use the feature where I'm allowed to record each slide individually, which is really nice because if you screw up your narration, you can just delete it and start over. But I've never used it before. So that's what I was doing all last week. And now I'm giving the presentations not using my voiceover. So what we are looking at, ladies and gentlemen, is a standard federation field. And I have overlaid the lacrosse lines onto the standard football field, right? Um, the the dimensions of a lacrosse field are 53 and a third yards to 60 yards wide. So it can be 54, it can be 55, it can be 58 and a half. It's anything up to 60. And the reason it's 53 and a third is because that's the width of a football field, right? The
Correct.
length of a standard field is 110 yards in length. And so you will note that a football field is 100 yards, and then you have two 10-yard end zones on either end. So,
Right.
yeah.
You're showing your notes screen and not
Oh,
the,
it did that again. Hold on. Let me swap.
yeah, it's just a smaller version.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't want you seeing that. Oh, that's right. I need to share that screen. All right. We seeing
Thank
that?
you.
All
Yes,
right.
thank
There you
you.
go. So, this is the midline. I still call it the 50 sometimes, right? It's just sort of force of habit, but it is called the midline or the center line in the rule book. We have two wing lines. And the wing lines are going to come in when we do face-offs and a little bit when we do restarts, particularly around the sub box. Um, this is the substitution area. This is the only area that players can go on and off the field in live ball play. During dead ball, they can just walk off their sideline. That's fine. But during live ball play, you've got to go in between these two cones that are marked on the 45 and the 45. Okay, so they are 5 yards off the midline in each direction. You have the far sideline and the bench sideline. So the bench sideline is this one at the bottom of the screen. You would have one team to the right of the substitution box and one team to the left. The far sideline is usually just fans. Okay. And so being on the bench sideline as an official, you're going to be interacting with coaches a lot more. There will be games that you do when I will just say, hey, I know we're supposed to swap quarters and we're supposed to do all this stuff, but I'm kind of going to keep you over there and I'm going to work over here so that I can answer these guys' questions and sort of be a little bit of a buffer between you and them. Okay. And that being said, when you throw a flag on a coach, even at the collegiate or big time high school level, oftentimes you will rotate with your partner, even though you're not supposed to, because it just makes it easier. So if I say go to the far sideline, this is what I'm talking about. You have the end lines, and again, you'll note they're in between, they're in the middle of the football end zone. We've got our defensive restraining lines. These lines are important during faceoffs because they restrain a set group of players and they are not allowed to release and engage with play until, wait for it, you call possession, which is carrying, cradling, passing, and shooting. These are the creases. They are two 9-foot radius or 18-foot diameter circles. And in those circles, the legally equipped goalkeeper gets certain privileges and protections. Okay. And in that, we're going to put our cage and we're going to have our goal line. Now, again, you will notice the defensive restraining line is always on the 30. The goal line on a Federation field is always on the 10-yard line. The end line is in the middle of the end zone. So if you're ever trying to figure out where you are on the field, those are good reference points. This area right here, this area formed by the defensive restraining line and these sort of wing line extenders, is what we call the attack box. And this is important in lacrosse because there are counts. Once a team crosses the midline with possession, they are required to step the ball in, to make contact with the attack box within 10 seconds. And if they don't do that, it's a turnover. Also, with stalling rules, I had mentioned that when I talked about valid shots. If we put a stall on, a get it in, keep it in, that means a team has 10 seconds to get it in the box, and then they've got to keep it in the box until certain requirements are met. And sometimes that's automatic in the last 2 minutes of a game. We'll get to that when we get to stalling. And then these areas right here we call the alley. And the alley is an area where oftentimes you will restart play. If the offense is fouled in their attack box, we are never going to restart the ball in the attack box. And so oftentimes I will say, all right, we've got to push. It's staying here. 38, take it out in the alley and we move the ball laterally. We don't want the offense getting kind of a free shot and an easy layup. We want to move them out, and everybody got to play lacrosse. I've zoomed out a little bit here, and you can see down below, we've got the coaches area and this new thing that we've added this year, the coaches box. This was added really to mirror the NCAA diagram. The coaches box, the only person who can be in the coaches box is the coach and a player that is about to substitute. So in order to come off the field and come on the field, you can't be in that substitution area until your buddy is basically below the wing line. Once they're below the wing line, you can come into that area. We want to keep that area clean because right behind the substitution area is the table area. And that's where your scorekeeper and timekeeper are hanging out. And we really want them to have good sight lines in order to see. The coaches areas along the front, it should just be coaches there. Players should not be up against that area. If anybody watched the Georgia game the other day, let me tell you, running down the field at full speed and being focused on the play and running into somebody who is celebrating or screaming at you. I've seen guys break shoulders. I've seen guys twist ankles. I have run into very expensive cameras. So we want to keep our officials safe and allow them to work. That being said, you will see the limit line. And that is an area where there can be no press, no fans, nobody, because that's an area we will often step out into in order to better officiate the play, right? Because if you got bodies coming at you, you got to go somewhere. So this is a little zoom in on the substitution and table and team and coaches areas, right? Um, Now, you can also have a version that is called a universal field. The thought behind this was a couple of years ago was it was a pain in the butt for schools to constantly be painting lines for both girls and boys, or they wanted to simplify turf fields so that you didn't have 63,000 other lines all over the field, and it was just crazy talk. So what we've done here is we've added 5 yards on to the end of the field, and we have moved the creases from the 10-yard line where the goal line would be down to where the women's creases are in women's lacrosse. So it's a little bit more to run. It's a little wider. It's a little bit more open. A lot of people have thoughts and feelings on universal fields, but um, uh, give me a field and I'll go officiate a lacrosse game. I'm happy to do it. Lines are a little wild, right? So this image on the right is one I took when I was at UNC, being a clinician at a Laredo. That's a lacrosse referee development event. Basically, you officiate games, and a bunch of guys stand on the sidelines with clipboards and make notes and come out and talk to you, and then you do talks and you do all sorts of stuff. But it's a great way to grow and develop as an official. And there were, there's 5 different colored lines, right? So they need to be non-caustic, 2 to 4 inches wide. The goal line, as we have talked about, must be 2 inches, and the midline must be 4 inches. And the reason that is important is because on a face-off, the midline, you want those sticks 4 inches apart so nobody gets a particularly big advantage. White or contrasting colors, and many fields have very different colored lines. So in pregame, we often talk about, hey, we got to let everybody know it's red end lines, blue side lines, black crease lines, right? It gets kind of wild. If you've got a midfield line, you have to have what we call a shadow line. Um, Booster clubs and coaches and ADs love their fancy logos in the middle of the field, but it is really hard to officiate a face-off, and this is where this occurs, or to officiate offsides if you don't know what side of the imaginary line he stepped on, right? You have to have a solid or shadow bordered line in order for this to be legal. And if not, it's a technical foul to start the game, and there's no face-off. You simply award it to the visiting team, and then we play it like it's fine. Um, Same thing. This came out 2 years ago. Same thing with sidelines and end lines. Failure to have a continuous sign and end line is a legal procedure against the home team. So this is Buford High School, and their facility is absolutely top-notch, spectacular. But it's really hard in a big game to say, hey, it was off on blue or red stepped out of bounds. Like, I don't know, right? This is impossible to officiate. So, you can use chalk paint, you can use stuff that will wash away, but it's really important to have a line. Otherwise, it's going to be a technical foul to start the game. Okay. And there's a whole procedure that we'll get into as you start to get more experience. You got to fill out a report. We send the report to GHSA, blah, 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 blah. Um, Cones. So let's make sure we know how many cones that we have. We need to have 7 cones. You have 2 at the substitution area, 1 on each corner of the field, and 1 at the midline. I will note that when you do a youth game, Billy's mom or Steve's dad will literally put a cone anywhere 2 lines come together. These are the only ones that you need. They need to be soft, flexible cones or pylons. We don't want the parking construction cones. Um, and they need to be either red or orange. They can't be any other color. Your goal is 6 by 6. As I've mentioned, it's got a 1.5 inch pipe. There are various styles that you can have that has not really come up in a test question in a very long time. It is important to note that they must be orange. You cannot have a lacrosse goal that is not orange. You are allowed to use ground anchors. They're like basically tent stakes for a cage. And the home team is responsible for providing these. Now, if you do not provide legal goals, it is a 3-minute non-releasable penalty to start the game. That means one team has an extra guy for 3 minutes, no matter what happens. Uh, a releasable penalty ends when the offended team scores a goal. In this case, you're man up, you score a goal, then you do a man up face-off, and then you're probably going to score another goal. So this is a big penalty. And I've done games like this where one goal was 6 feet by 6 feet and one goal was 5 feet by 5 feet. But remember, we switch at the end of every quarter. And so the idea is it sort of works itself out. But this is another one you have to fill out a report for. The nets need to be pyramidal shaped cord netting, fashioned 7 feet at the rear of the goal. They can't exceed 1.5 inches in terms of their opening, and they can be any solid color. You cannot have mixed colors. You can't go tie-dye, Grateful Dead styles on your netting. The ball is, I don't know if folks know this, solid Indian rubber. It is tested by the National Operating Committee on Standards for Athletic Equipment, or NOCSE, as well as the NFHS. And this is really important. A couple of years ago, teams were buying balls from China or wherever, and they didn't meet these standards. They just said lacrosse ball on them. And when they hit people in helmets and chest protectors, the chest protectors or the helmet weren't designed for that weight of or size of a ball. So kids were getting commotio cordis, kids were getting concussions from balls that didn't meet the standard. And so if you don't find a ball that meets these standards, you need to just get rid of the ball, right? Just toss it off to the side and say, Coach, I need a legal ball. If nobody's got a legal ball, we're not playing. We're literally not playing the game. Okay. Balls can be white, yellow, green, and orange. But both coaches need to agree that they want to change the ball. So if one team says, I want an orange ball, and the other team says, I want a white ball, we're sticking with a white ball. Okay. This is the NOCSE mark, and this is the Federation mark. So those are the things that we are looking for to make sure. And I will, like, one of the things I do when I do a face-off is I put the ball down with the logo so that I know the ball is exactly in the middle of the line. So I'm constantly looking at what it says, right? And if I notice a ball is illegal, I just toss it off and ask for another ball. You need a bunch of other stuff too, right? We need a visible score mechanism. So you can have one of these flip scorecard things, or you can have a scoreboard, right? You can have a giant jumbotron, but you need something where everybody can see what the score is. You need a timing device, and it can be, this Champion Sports dual timer clock. By the way, if you do not know how to work one of these, the next time you head out, you should definitely learn how to work one of these. Because you're going to have to explain to Steve's mom how this works because she's going to be your time operator. And you need a horn. I know we don't do it. Used to be that every time the ball went out on the sidelines, a team could blow a horn. You'd put your arms up like this and you'd give a team 20 seconds to substitute. We don't do that anymore. We sped the game up about 10 years ago. But you still need a horn for the end of the period, and you need a horn if the table or the coaches want to get your attention. They can blow a double horn to request a conference, or the table can say, hey, we think a kid's in there that shouldn't be in there. Okay. We talked about cones, we talked about balls. The home team supplies all of those. And then you need a book. And the book is where you list all the players and all the goals and all the penalties and all the timeouts. and the home team's book is the official book. Now, at the high school level, varsity, I definitely need a book. JV, you can have a piece of paper. Youth, you just need a piece of paper. Okay. All righty. Okay. So we are done with that presentation. Let's take a look at questions. Do you have to let the coach know about the technical foul? Yes. As soon as I show up to a field, and we're going to talk about this in a presentation called I call pregame responsibilities. The first thing I do when I get to a field is I walk the field. I want to know, are the nets okay? Are the goals okay? Because I want to give the head coach as much time to fix a problem as I can. It's going to be better for me if we fix the problem. I want the line. I want the goal being right. I want all those things. And so I have walked up to coaches and I go, Coach, you have, and he goes, look, I know the booster club will not allow us to put the line through. Call the penalty. I'm totally cool. I get it. Like send the report to GHSA. It's fine. Uh, um, so yeah, like I try to let them know as quickly as possible because they have until game time to solve the problem, right? And I've had coaches out there with the spray can, right? 5 minutes before a game starts, like marking the crease or marking the goal line or getting a midline in there so we can do the game. All righty. Okay, so cross and equipment. All right, I am gonna do. We are coming up on the time, so I am probably gonna have you watch cross and equipment. This is basically player equipment, what they're required to wear, and what a stick specificate, like how long can a stick be? How do we measure a stick? All of those things. But I really want to get to um, this presentation because we're going to talk about uniforms, and I want to let you guys know sort of what you're looking for and what you want to be wearing so that it works for you guys. Because I know that we got a lot going on. All right, so let me share this one. Get this thing right. All right. We seeing my table personnel here? We good?
Yes.
Okay. So, game personnel. You need players. You need 10 to start a game. Can't start the game with less than 10. Captains are mentioned in the rule book. Head coaches are mentioned in the rule book. Officials are mentioned in the rule book. The scorekeeper, site administrator, and ball retrievers are mentioned in the rule book. Okay. So that is not to say that assistant coaches don't play a really important role in what's going on, and that there also may be a spotter, there may be an announcer that you have to deal with. There's a lot of trainers, doctors, like all sorts of stuff. But these are the only people that are like actually mentioned in the rule book. Everybody else is a non-player sort of blank slate. Okay. It is the minimum officials on a game is two. So when you guys do youth games, it's going to be two. When you guys do JV games, it's going to be two. Okay. When three is recommended, it is a hell of a lot easier to officiate this game with three. And there has been a lot of discussion at the upper levels of potentially going to four for big time games, right? They do four in the PLL. But when you go from two to three, you quickly realize how much you've been missing. Um, you have a referee, you have an umpire, and you have a field judge. Um, Everybody is dressed identically. I cannot stress this enough. There are games I do where I'm with two big giant guys and they think 48 degrees and windy is just fine. And we're going no jacket and shorts, long sleeves. And I'm like, sure. Um, but the referee is the one who gets to decide. Okay, if there's no consensus. Now, most people will work with you and they'll figure it out, but you got to get used to the fact that you're going to need a lot of equipment to dress appropriately in Georgia. The weather changes in a heartbeat. I've done games where it's sunny and then there's a rainbow and then it snows and then it's windy and then there's a tropical storm. Like it's wild. So the referee is the one who's going to decide. That is also true of a rule. So all officials can call any foul on the field. But if there's no consensus as to how to call it, the referee is going to make that final decision. Okay. Referees can suspend play for any reason they want. And I'll show you some examples in your when you watch the timing video. Authority begins when they arrive at the facility and ends when they leave the facility. So as soon as I pull into the parking lot, I am the official on that game. And when I drive away, I am no longer the official. So if somebody comes up to me and drops 11 F-bombs because I suck, I can still throw a flag and eject them, right? It's important to understand that. Look, let's talk about what you're getting into. I love doing this more than anything. I think being an official has been the greatest challenges of my life. It has brought me great friends. It is kept me in touch with the game that I love. It's made me some money. It's allowed me to travel. Like it's spectacular. But you got to understand that this is a job, and while a lot of people don't take it seriously, there are a lot of people that do, and so you better be prepared to take it seriously. Um, this is what you can control right now. You can control your conditioning. You can control your appearance. You will notice that I am closely shaved, right? Um, uh, you can control your conduct. And I say this because while my authority might begin when I show up on the field, I am hyper aware when I am in the quick trip right around the corner from somebody's high school that I need to be aware that everybody's watching me and they're paying attention to what I'm saying. You need to be punctual, need to be on time, right? I know it's hard. The joke is Atlanta is an hour from Atlanta. Varsity games start at 7:30, sometimes 6:45, sometimes 5:45. You got to make sure you give yourself enough time to get to the place when you need to get there. You need to be reliable. If you are assigned a game, you need to accept quickly. If you get into trouble, you need to call and say, hey, I'm stuck in traffic. And this leads to communication. That's not just communication with coaches or players, it's communication with your partners, your assigners, the board, all of those things. Rules knowledge, mechanics, and game management, you don't have a clue yet. So that is going to come with time and experience. And so really focus on the things that you can control. And one of the things that you can control is your uniform. What we need the hat with the black piping or the black hat with the white piping. You need a long sleeve GHSA shirt and a short sleeved GHSA shirt. Our games start in mid-February. Um, the week before will be scrimmages, so it may be snowing or sleeting or 20 degrees. And so you're definitely going to want a long sleeve shirt. You want any undergarment that you wear, compression shorts, a shirt, whether it's long sleeve or short sleeve, has to be black. Now, I have a short sleeve shirt like this that's super thin. I have long sleeve shirts that are thin. I have long sleeve shirts that are super thick that I can put under that long sleeve GHSA striped jersey. These are 2-inch striped jerseys. They have a pocket and they have a collar. The basketball jersey doesn't work. Black shorts and black pants, they have to have belt loops. And you need a black belt. You don't need the belt with the Justin Bieber buckle. You don't need Uncle Ben's Big Tex barbecue buckle. You need a just plain old boring buckle on an all black belt. And that's because you're going to attach a timer, and that is what is going to hold your flags in play. Because you're going to be pulling them out and throwing them and doing stuff, and you're shoving them back in there. If you are wearing basketball shorts, you will just poop your flags through and they'll be 80 yards away when you need them. Okay. We wear ankle socks, so all black ankle socks, and then all black shoes. Now, what I do with my shoes is so I just got a new pair of Mizunos for the spring season. And the first thing I did was I took a black marker and I blackened out the white Mizuno logo. That's how seriously I take my uniform when I do games. Okay. Now, all of that being said, you're going to have to purchase your GHSA stuff from a place that does sublimated G. So we don't do patches. All of this stuff is literally baked into the shirt. Um, and they're not terribly expensive. These guys do really high quality stuff. I have bought lots of stuff from All Sports Officials. These are Smitty products. Um, but the black shirt and the black shorts and the black pants, you can find this stuff at Marshalls and TJ Maxx and Target on sale. Like when short season comes to an end, like it is now, look for deals on shorts. Socks, you can easily get these cheap. Okay. Right in the middle here above the shoes, all black jacket. So it can say Nike, it can say that, but you don't want like Steve's Auto Body on the back of it. Okay. Foul weather gear that I recommend that you get. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Smartwool. I got a delightful set of long johns so that I can do games. I have all black gloves. I love my Elmer Fudd hat where the flaps come down so that I don't have to listen to people screaming at me. And I don't have to worry about my ears freezing off. But you can also get one of those headband things to make your ears okay when it's freezing outside, right? Now, required equipment, you need at least one flag, but I would suggest two, and I would get two flags with the black tip. When you put these flags into your pants or shorts, and you just have the top of the ball of the flag hanging out, when you go to see whether your flag is okay, because if you've been throwing flags and you're like, okay, where is that? You don't want the coach thinking that you're about to throw a flag. And they will yell at you, like, hey, why did you grab your flag there? You saw that slash. And you're like, I'm just trying to figure out where my stuff is, man. Um, Top right, you have a timer. A 20-second timer is probably the most expensive piece of equipment you're going to do. They run anywhere from $70 to $100, but you need to have one. You cannot do a 20-second count and track all the things that you need to do while a clear is going on and be counting in your head. It is not possible. If you have a ready ref that it has an adjustable time setting, that works perfectly. So if you're a back judge or you do another sport that uses a timer, as long as you can adjust it to 20 seconds, that's good. You need a watch that does countdown timers. Ain't nobody got time to, 13 minus 6, carry the one. Like, I don't need to figure out how much time is left. I want to look at my watch and be like, Coach, there are 3 minutes and 42 seconds left. We need tape measures. We need to be able to measure our the crosses and the pockets and all that kind of stuff. Make sure your tape measure is at least 6 feet long because that is the longest length a stick is allowed to be. But you don't need the Bob the Builder one, right? You can literally buy the $2 one at Home Depot. Fox 40 finger whistle. Uh, 99% of lacrosse officials use finger whistles. So you put it on your non-dominant hand. And so when I go dead ball, I'm bringing up my finger to blow the whistle. Okay. I have multiples of these because I did a game last year where big dude took a shot and I did my sort of Matrix Neo kind of trying to get out of the way thing and bent over and sort of fell on my back. And that ball came and smashed the Fox 40 finger whistle into 79,000 pieces. Okay. And so you want to have a backup in case something or you just lose it, right? Or sometimes it just gets hot and the thing falls apart. But you want multiples of those. At the end of your second year of officiating high school, you will get a Georgia Lacrosse Ron Maloney memorial coin. But if you end up becoming the referee before then, I sometimes use a silver dollar or you can use a 50-cent piece or a quarter. It doesn't matter, right? A lot of lacrosse officials, when you hang out with each other, they will trade coins with you because they like collecting coins from different places and different tournaments and stuff like that. You can do a scorecard like this. You can order these online. You can get them from USA Lacrosse. You can get them from really any of the big dealers. And I believe you can get them from All Sports Officials. But you can also use an index card, right? And you don't need a fancy pencil. If you play golf, just grab a couple the next time you're in the pro shop. Okay. Again, the 20-second timer is the most important thing. Um, you might want to get a battery. You might want to get a small screwdriver just in case. When the season's over, I pop the battery out so that I know it's going to get a new battery in the beginning. Um, uh, there are two types. You can get one that does just 20 seconds. The one on the top, if you pull it one way, if you pull the toggle switch one way, is 100 seconds or a minute and 40. And then you go the other way and it's 20. And that's because a timeout is 2 minutes long and you give everybody a 20-second warning. So um, it's not necessarily a feature that's a must-have. I have multiple timers and I go back and forth between which one I like and which one I use. For youth games and summer tournaments, this is our uniform. So it is the shorts, the black pants, the black jacket, the black socks, the black shoes, the black belt. But instead of wearing our GHSA stuff, we wear what we call the GLOA summer shirt, which is this like bright yellow, safety never takes a holiday. You can find me in the woods from 1,000 feet in the sky, kind of yellow. And then you use a white hat. Now you could use a USA Lacrosse hat. You could use a white golf hat. You could use a GLOA hat that you can purchase, but it is not required that you buy that. You just need a white hat. And for many of you, you will be doing a fair amount of youth games. I will be sending out a um, uh, little survey asking you what your shirt size is. I'll probably do that right after um, this class. So look for an email from me and we'll go from there. All righty. Now, this is all the random other stuff that you can kind of have in your bag. I have extra flags. I got extra pencils. I have zip ties so that I can repair a net if the goal net breaks. I have women's ponytail hair bands. I wrap that around my scorecard and put my pencil in it. You can also use the rubber bands from broccoli. That works really well. And it prevents the card from jostling out of your pocket as you run down the field. Um, I have an extra watch and socks. Um, Ziploc bags are good because you can put your wallet and your money and stuff in if you're going to be in the rain. Advil, or as I like to call it, ref candy, and sunscreen. Really important stuff. Like, again, you don't need to spend a ton of money. You probably have a bunch of this stuff laying around the house. And this is just kind of stuff that you will collect over time. The things you want to focus on are the GHSA shirts and the timer. That's the big thing, right? So look, fake it till you make it. You do not know the rules and mechanics right now, but that's going to come with time, right? Uh, if you're a football guy, for example, I always thought, and I would, I will, I will defend this position. I think the kicking game in football is the hardest thing to officiate. Can you advance a punt? Who is it? A muff? Is it a fumble? Uh, uh, you know, d does that score if it bounces over the upright and it's still a live ball, right? The University of Tennessee is suing the NCAA. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on here. And that stuff is going to come with time. Learning how to officiate the crease takes 3 years. 3 years of doing games and being in the book. So it is really important that you look like you know what you're doing. The uniform is an essential component of that. So arrive on site, dressed in your uniform, look neat, cleaned, and pressed, hair out of the way, clean shaven. We do not wear sunglasses in high school games. You're going to give somebody a firm handshake and look them in the eye and say, Coach, I'm your official today. Nice to meet you. Uh, that's really important. Developing your on-field presence is a key component to being a good official. And having a great uniform and the equipment that you need is really, really essential to that. Um, so again, this is the shirt that I was talking about, but I am going to try to find, I think I may have enough for everybody for this class that was kind of left over the last couple of years. But this is GA Laxref at logosoftware.com. This stuff may transition over to all sports officials. We haven't really had that conversation yet. And then here are the places that you can go. There used to be a place down by the airport that you could buy stuff as an official, but it shut down last year. So Zebraware, umpatire.com, Honig's. I've purchased tons of stuff from Honig's, the official's choice. And of course, All Sports Officials is a great place to try to get stuff. All right. So let's talk a little briefly about your scorers table, right? It should be about 6 yards from the sideline and the center line. And this is where the timekeepers are going to hang out. We've talked about this is what you need. You need a horn, you need a clock, right? All of that stuff. And you need a scorer. That's what the book looks like. And so you're going to list all the players in there. You're going to have their number, their position, their full name. This is something that I have to check all the time. If I eject or disqualify a player, if a player gets injured, if you know, if there's any issue, I may need to look up that player's name or that coach's name so that I can fill out my report. Okay. They're going to keep list of the goals, assists, timeouts, the name, the number of a violation, the time of the penalty, both when it occurred and for how long the penalty is to be served. The referee is going to confirm after each quarter. And the scorer is supposed to let you know when team's out of timeouts. You should already know that. Or when a player accumulates 5 or more minutes of personal fouls, because that player is disqualified from the game. They are not ejected, they are disqualified, so they can't play the remainder of the game. Captains are important, but that does not give them the right to argue with or criticize an official. Really, the only thing a captain does is if you're the visiting official, the visiting captain, you get to call the coin toss in the before the game and then in the first overtime. Okay. You need 10 players. You cannot have more than 10, and you must have a legally equipped goalkeeper. They're listed as attack, middies, defenseman, and goalkeeper in that order, either down the box or up the box. And you are allowed a maximum number of 4 long crosses, guys with the big sticks, on the field at any one time. The game can continue if there are fewer than 10 because you have injuries, you've disqualified a player, you've ejected a player, right? Stevie doesn't want to play anymore and quit the team. You can continue playing, but stalling and onside rules remain in effect. The in-home is the player we select, when we don't know whose number it was, or a foul is called on a bench or a non-player. So either it's on the head coach or it's on a non-player. The trainer did something wackadoo. This is a starting attackman who is the first guy listed in the book. And so if you don't know who the guy who should be serving the penalty, this happens a lot in youth games because they only have the number on their front. They don't often have, or they have the number on their back, but they don't have the number on the front of their summer jerseys. So it can happen. You don't like when it happens, but it can happen. The head coach is the guy who makes all the decisions. He's the one who's allowed to call a timeout. He's the one designated to communicate with officials. He certifies that players are properly equipped, and that's a big one. Um, he's responsible for players and non-players. So if you have a problem with like some jackwagon up in the stands and you know it's his team, you can go to the head coach and be like, Coach, we're going to have to address this situation. He should act in a courteous manner and assist officials in controlling spectators. Um, That being said, we also need to act in a courteous manner. You can't do this job if you're just going to steamroll in and be like, I know the rules and you're an idiot and blah, 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 blah. Um, I am not a person who only talks to head coaches. I will talk to anybody who asks me a question nicely. Um, I don't respond to statements, and I don't respond to assistant coaches barking and chirping and screaming at me. If they have a problem, they can either ask me why I called what I called, or they can bring it up with their head coach. These relationships can change quickly. Like I've been doing this a long time, and I know a lot of these guys, and I have history with a lot of these guys. I'm friends with some of these guys outside of lacrosse. These relationships in the game can escalate really quickly, and this is one of the things you need to learn to deal and to manage as an official. So, learning to be an excellent communicator is a really powerful tool that you have. To the point of saying, I don't talk to assistant coaches become head coaches, and they are going to remember how you treated them down the line. We'll get into that when we get to game management. But when it gets heated, we need to be the ones who are in charge and are the adults in the room. We need to keep our cool. Okay. Finally, ball retrievers. They're just listed in here. It's our last or second to last group of folks. They need to wear a helmet and have a contrasting uniform. They may not stand directly behind the goal, and the home team is responsible for training them and providing for the safety of ball retrievers. You tend to get these guys when you do like a championship game, right? We don't see these very often in just sort of regular games, but they are listed in Rule 110. And then finally, we have these folks, right? Now, they're not particularly listed necessarily. They're mentioned as spectators, I guess, a couple of times. But you know, it takes a lot to be in a space where suddenly 5,000 people are yelling at you or think that you're terrible. Okay. You have to trust that you know what you were doing. You got to put the work in. You got to be in the right spot and you got to make the right call, right? The just so you know, the bar of doing a good job in any official capacity is you get it right 100% of the time. It's probably not going to happen, but that's the expectation when you walk out onto the field. And just so you know, 50% of the people are going to think you're mediocre and 50% of the people are going to think you're terrible. That's just the nature of this business. And engaging with and chirping with fans is a no-no, right? Do not turn and say, I took the class and paid the money. Here's my whistle. Here's my flag. You go do it. That is unprofessional and not what we want to do. I will explain, particularly when I'm doing youth games, I will explain why I called what I called during a dead ball, or I'll walk over and say, "Hey, does anybody have any questions? I'm trying to recruit people. I want guys like you to do this." So, just make sure you have a professional relationship with parents as well. And they can be a lot. Like I get it. So, those are all things that we are dealing with here. I get it. All right. Let me see if we've got any questions. Um, they should have the shirts in stock. They sublimate them themselves, I believe. So this should be great. When you make the order right now, just let them know that you're a GLOA official, and you should get a 10% discount and free shipping over $100, which if you're buying two shirts and a timer, that's not going to be a problem at all. And they are really nice. They are really nice. Yeah, One Stop Sports Officials is also quite good. But I just know you're gonna get 10. Magic Eraser, Chris. If you are using one of those plastic cards, or Scott, you can wipe off your pencil marks with a magic eraser much better than you can with the little the little rubber eraser. What I do with my scorecard is I actually take my scorecard and I put white athletic tape down each column. And so you write on the athletic tape, and even if it is pouring rain, you are going to get that on there. And then if I do a couple of games in a row, I peel it off and just put it on my bag. And so I know what the final score is and the teams that we're playing and how long it took. So I have to, when I go in and fill out my game reports, I sort of know what's going on. We will talk about all those tricks of the trade and all that random stuff kind of as we move along. Um, all right. I went 5 minutes over. I apologize. I really do want to be respectful of your time. Um, hey, if you've got questions, text me. Everybody's got my number. It's on the document, right? Send me an email. I've told this to every official that I have ever trained, and I think that's over 1,000 people at this point in time. Um, if you want to call me, and I don't answer, it is probably because I am calling somebody else to figure out something that I could have done better as I'm driving home from a game. Okay. So I will get back to you. Leave a message, text me, leave me your name. I'll put you in my phone and we can figure out whatever we need to figure out. Right. All right, y'all. I'll keep you posted about Sunday. I'm hoping the storm is not too bad, but I will see you hopefully on Sunday, and we will get a lot of work done, and we will keep this going. I'm excited for y'all. I really wish I was young again and my knees work and I could start this whole process over because it's been truly a joy of my life. So I'm glad that you guys are jumping in and you will get to meet a whole group of fantastic guys and trainers and officials on Sunday at Pope High School.
Quick question. Quick
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, what do you got?
I think that it said that the attire for Saturday was casual.
Totally
No, sorry.
casual. Like you can wear sweatpants. I'm most likely going to be wearing a crimson velour tracksuit that is bedazzled with lacrosse sticks. I mean,
So just comfortable,
when you're a player,
athletic.
you got to play. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, whatever is comfortable. It's going to be freezing cold. If the weather had been nicer, I would have tried to get you guys out on a field to try to do some of this stuff, but I think it's just going to be miserable. So um, just dress comfortably. The Pope High School facility is going to be great, so it'll be a nice room temperature kind of deal. You might want to bring a water bottle. We'll have breakfast like donuts and power bars and coffee and stuff like that. So sort of a light breakfast. We will end at 1, and then you guys are free for the rest of the day. So
Okay. So everything's going to be in classroom. It'll be
everything's going to be in classroom.
okay.
Everything's going to be in classroom. Yep.
Final question. One final question is, I know you said clean shave. So what is the expectations with
As
facial
long
hair?
as, at the high school level, as long as it is not, you don't look like the Amish mafia, right? Then we're good. If it is sort of a nice tailored look, it's fine. In high school, it's fine. As you think about moving up,
Hmm.
think about this. Have you ever seen an NFL or an NBA official with a beard or
Nope.
a mustache? You have not.
Yeah. Football season, clean shave. Just curious. Want to
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I mean, I would love to grow a beard, but I look like a 14-year-old trying to buy cigarettes. It's like really bad when I try to grow a beard. It's truly, truly embarrassing. Um, but when you do a college game, the expectation is that you are clean shaven, and so it sort of works out for me. So all right. Anybody else?
Good.
All right,
Thank you,
guys.
sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. I will see you on Sunday.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you so much.